that the ananya devotee surpasses both the path of light and darkness. Now Krishna will explain how to become such an ananya devotee. The first step is hearing about Krishna. Ananya devotee, meaning one who is constantly engaged in devotional service, pure devotional service, unflinching devotion for Krishna. The ananya bhakta, right? He has unflinching faith and is fully absorbed in the service of Krishna. So Lord Krishna was mentioning about this ananya bhakta in the 8th chapter. So now in the 9th chapter, he's going to go on to describe how we can become an ananya bhakta. This 9th chapter. Why is it the most confidential knowledge? We want to understand the importance of this chapter. Chapter 9 is most confidential because it describes pure, unalloyed devotional service. The beginning chapters of Bhagavad-gita describe confidential knowledge of the difference between the soul and the body. Chapters 7 and 8 are more confidential because they describe devotional service, which brings enlightenment in Krishna consciousness. Right? We want the devotees to understand there is confidential knowledge, there is more confidential knowledge, and there is the most confidential knowledge. So confidential knowledge was given for us in the 2nd and 3rd chapters. Lord Krishna was explaining the difference between the body and the soul, and the law of karma, how people are working for fruit of enjoyment. So these kind of things. This knowledge is not for everyone. Most people are simply busy in working to satisfy their senses. They don't know there's a soul. They never thought about it. They never thought about what happens at the end of life. Where do you go? For most people, they say, I never had any time. I'm so busy working. Right? They're Buddhas, all working hard to satisfy the senses and never taking any time to inquire about the purpose of life. So they never got that confidential knowledge. But then there is more confidential knowledge. There are some people who know about the soul, but they don't know about devotional service. We know there are many different spiritual groups, many different yoga societies, meditation, different religious faiths, and they may be practicing some kind of process of self-realization, but they don't know about devotional service. That is special. So this was introduced to us in chapter 7. After the first 6 chapters, Lord Krishna had brought the yoga ladder to the conclusion and described that Bhakti Yoga was the highest. And then chapter 7, Lord Krishna began to explain how to practice Bhakti Yoga. And there are many similarities between the 7th chapter and the 9th chapter actually. Anyway, chapter 7 and 8 are considered more confidential because they describe the process of devotional service. For example, Krishna describes the different kinds of people who surrender to him, those who don't. And he describes also how to cross over the material energy, surrendering to Him. So in this way, more confidential knowledge, but the most confidential knowledge is special. These same points are made also in the 18th chapter. We're looking tonight at the 9th chapter, but it's also mentioned in the 18th chapter. The 18th chapter, remember what happens in the 18th chapter? It's Krishna summarizing. He's going over all the main points which he has explained in the course of the Bhagavad-gita. He's not giving us anything new in the 18th chapter, but it's a summary of everything. So he mentions there about the 3 different kinds of knowledge. Confidential, more confidential, and most confidential. And they can be understood in relation to the different understanding or realizations of the Absolute Truth. As Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So this is from Prabhupada's purport in the first verse of the 9th chapter. The very beginning of Bhagavad-gita, the first chapter, is more or less an introduction to the rest of the book. And in the 2nd and 3rd chapters, spiritual knowledge is described as confidential. Topics discussed in the 7th and 8th chapter relate to devotional service. And because they bring enlightenment and Krishna consciousness, they are more confidential. But the matters described in the 9th chapter deal with unalloyed, pure devotion. That is called the most confidential. Unalloyed, pure devotion. Right? Prabhupada uses this word. I never came across this word in philosophy before, you know. It's a term, unalloyed, no alloy. An alloy is where you mix something, you alloys, you bring different mixtures of metals in to get different qualities, you know, steel and so on, you make an alloy. But Prabhupada calls pure devotional service unalloyed. I mean, no impurities, no desires for karma, fruitive activity, or jnana, philosophical speculation. So that is the nature of pure devotion. And that is actually ananya bhakti, right? We want to develop that pure love for Krishna without material contamination. So it's very special. And there are special features of that unalloyed devotion. We will see as we go through the 9th chapter how Krishna has a special feeling for those who cultivate that mode of pure devotion. 9.2, how can the soul, which is so active within this body, be inactive after liberating from the body? It is always active. If it is eternal, then it is eternally active. And its activities in the spiritual kingdom are the most confidential part of spiritual knowledge. These activities of the spirit soul are therefore indicated here as constituting the king of all knowledge, the most confidential part of all knowledge. Right? The 2nd verse of the 9th chapter, Krishna is speaking Rajavidya, Rajaguya, right? The king of knowledge, the most confidential knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada is describing how there must be activities. The soul will be active. The impersonalists, they want to make everything inactive. They want to stop all activities. Because they think if there are any activities, they must be material. They do not know that there are such things as spiritual activity. So, pure devotional service is concerned with cultivating spiritual activity. We want to understand how to be fully engaged in Krishna consciousness. Devotional service is not inactivity, but it's activity for the pleasure of Krishna. And the nature of the soul is to be active. The impersonalists don't know how to be spiritually active. They think you have to stop all activity. But when they stop all activity, then the result is simply boredom. And they come back to the material world and take up material philanthropic activities. No more activity. So this first section in the 9th chapter, verses 1, 2 and 3, are all describing to us qualifications for hearing about Krishna. Right? In the first verse of the 9th chapter, Lord Krishna described Arjuna's qualification. He said, because you are never envious of me, Arjuna, I should speak this knowledge to you. So this is a very important quality, to understand Krishna and to take part in devotional service. We have to give up envy. And Prabhupada explains how there are many people envious. In fact, material world, everyone is envious of each other. You know, someone has something we don't. Sometimes we see the grihastas envy the brahmacharis. That, oh, those brahmacharis, they just lay around the ashram, they don't do anything. But at the same time, the brahmacharis often envy the grihastas. They think, oh, those grihastas, they're so lucky. They have their nice family, they have their nice home, they have their nice wives cooking for them and everything. And so everyone's envious of each other. It's not just householders envy grihastas. Brahmacharis also envy the grihastas. Grihastas envy the brahmacharis. Nobody's ever satisfied. We all think somebody else is better off. Why they're better off than me? We envy them. So this envy, this is the nature of the material world. And if we want to understand Krishna, we have to give up envy. Of course, we all envy Krishna, because Krishna is Bhagavan. He has everything more than us, right? He doesn't get old. He doesn't get disease. He doesn't die. He's the richest. He's the most knowledgeable. He's the most renowned. He's the most strong. Everything. He has all the opulences. So he has everything. And why he should have everything? We think like that. We envy him. That's why we're here in the material world. So we have to give up envy in order to properly take up devotional service. We have to willingly become subordinate to Krishna and accept that Krishna is the Supreme, and we can have a relationship with Him. So this is very important, and a very important qualification. Arjuna was not envious. Arjuna was not envious of Krishna. Therefore, Krishna was speaking this knowledge to him. This is very nice. You see, if we also become free of envy, Krishna will also help us to understand this knowledge. Another point made in the first section, in the second verse, in the 9th chapter, this Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitram Idamuttamam, famous verse. The Acharyas explain this Raja Vidya, the king of knowledge. Baladev Vidyabhusan said, this knowledge is meant for kings. Right? Raja means king. So this knowledge is meant for kings. And kings are generally known to be generous, charitable people. They have, kings usually will have a treasury, they'll have a lot of wealth, and they will like to give charity. Great kings like Maharaj Janak and Maharaj Dasarath, Lord Krishna also, they would regularly give charity. Anyone could come to them, any brahmanas would come, and they would be satisfied. They would give them charity. So this knowledge also is meant for kings, and it's meant to be distributed. It's meant for people who have the nature of kings, who are generous, who are not miserly. Right? There's the Kripana, the miserly person, and the Brahmana. Brahmana is expected to be generous, the opposite of the Kripana. So this knowledge about devotional service, ananya bhakti, this is meant to be distributed by the devotees. We should enlighten other devotees about the topic. So this is another qualification for devotees to understand this knowledge. That don't just take this knowledge for yourself, but be generous with it. Right? As Krishna will say in the 10th chapter, the devotees like to discuss topics of Krishna and enlighten one another and converse about Krishna. So this is a feature of this ananya bhakti. So going ahead, in this verse 9.2, Lord Krishna was explaining about the nature of devotional service, how Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam, Pavitram, Idam Uttamam, Pratyak Shavagamam Dharmyam, Susukam Kartam Avyayam. Pratyak Shavagamam Dharmyam. The example was given about Narada Muni, that he had heard from the great sages and he had experienced the process of devotional service through the association of the great sages. So he began to distribute it. He was going everywhere chanting the holy name and distributing the message of the glories of the Supreme Lord. It is mentioned here. It gives direct perception of the self by realization. So this is an important point, that the process of devotional service is not dry, but by practicing devotional service, we can actually realize our spiritual nature. Just as Narada Muni awakened to the Krishna consciousness by association with the great sages, in the same way, we can also realize the truth through nice association. It is mentioned, Pavitram idam uttamam. It's the purest, and it's uttamam, it's the highest. It gives direct perception Susukam, joyfully performed. Avyayam, it is everlasting. Right? Devotional service is not finished. It's not that, like the Mayavadis think, you do devotional service and then one day you become God and you can give up the activities. But devotional service is continuous. It goes on in this world and in the spiritual world. When we go on into the spiritual world, we continue to serve Krishna. We don't stop. The impersonalists, they think you give up, you become one, you merge in the oneness and give up the activity. But the devotee, for the devotee, devotional service is eternal, everlasting. Right? You can see this nice illustration here. This was a picture. I remember we were distributing back to Godhead when I came to the Krishna consciousness movement, and this was a cover picture on the Back to Godhead we were distributing. This is a very old picture of the devotees in Boston, in USA, and you can see, if you look closely at this picture, you can see how joyful and how happy everyone is. Everyone very blissful in chanting the holy name. When they showed this picture to Prabhupada, they said devotees were saying to Prabhupada, everyone's so joyful looking. Prabhupada said yes. He said, this is Sankirtan. He said, just like machine gun. He said, everyone gets the mercy. Right? When you have the big machine gun, right? Everyone gets the mercy. So this is Sankirtan. Not just one or two people, but everyone is drowned. And it's experience. Everyone is experiencing the pleasure of the devotional service through chanting the holy name. Not just only Narada Muni, ordinary devotees, new devotees, people who have recently come to Krishna consciousness, they can immediately experience the pleasure and become joyful in Krishna consciousness. Avagamam is understood. It's not just some myth, it's actually a fact. You can feel it. Prabhupada gives example. Savagamam. If you are hungry and you are given very nice, nutritious, palatable food, you don't have to take any advice from others. You understand yourself. Yes, I am now feeling strong. I am now feeling energetic. This is called Pratyakshavagamam Dhamyam. Similarly, if you take to Krishna consciousness, this is the process, then you feel automatically how you are satisfied. Okay? This is the fact. If we're actually in Krishna consciousness, we will be satisfied. If we come before the spiritual master in an unhappy, morose mood, it is not very pleasing to the spiritual master. Right? Spiritual master wants to see the devotees happy, joyful. He doesn't want to hear all the complaints, all this and that, all the things. No, he wants to hear that you're joyful, that you're perceiving the pleasure of Krishna consciousness. So automatically, we should feel like this when we're engaged in devotional service. What is stopping us? Just simply our own desire. We have to desire, we have to want to enter into this ocean of devotional service. If you just simply stand on the shore and put your hand in the water, oh, I think the water is a bit cold today. No, I don't know. I don't think that the Sankirtan's so nice today. Nobody's chanting. No good people are chanting. We shouldn't have any considerations. We should simply dive in to the ocean of devotional service, and we can be awakened to Krishna consciousness. So, this is Lord Krishna speaking to us, the instructions, the qualifications for hearing. So the first 3 verses are all about developing qualifications for hearing. I said, first of all, the first verse was Krishna saying to Arjuna, don't be envious, right? And the second verse was about being generous, being like a king, taking this knowledge and distributing it. Then, in the third verse, Krishna speaks another qualification. He said, those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me. So faith is a very important qualification. We have to have faith. It's surprising actually how often people don't have much faith in. Although they may be practicing, it seems like they're devotees, and they may even be initiating, but sometimes they have very weak faith in the process of devotional service. And therefore, because they have weak faith, they have so many doubts, so many demons come in the mind and disturb their attempts, disturb their devotion. So one's spiritual advancement is understood by how much faith one has. There is the neophyte devotee, or what we would call kanista devotee, who doesn't have much knowledge and he doesn't have much faith. So he can easily be shaken in the process of devotional service. They can easily give up. Stop practicing. Somebody comes, somebody who's not a devotee defeats them, convinces them that, oh, what you're doing is all wrong, you wake up too early in the morning, you don't get enough protein because you don't eat meat, you're missing out on life because you don't watch television and you don't take drugs and you don't drink. So you're missing out a lot on life, you know. And so we may, maybe they're right, you know. If you have weak faith, you can think these people are right. You can start believing these kind of people. On the intermediate level, one has some faith. They still may not be very strong in knowledge, but they do have faith that what they're doing is right. They're not yet able to defeat others, but still they have faith. And on the higher level, highest level, the Uttama devotee, they have knowledge and faith. And so then when people come along with these doubts, they can defeat them and they can change their minds. They can convince them that what the devotee is actually doing is right. So faith is a very important quality. Now, how do we get faith? If we don't have much faith, how can we strengthen our faith? We need to associate with people who have faith. If we hear from people who have strong faith, we become convinced. It's very convincing to hear from people who have very strong faith. I remember in Srila Prabhupada's time, there was a young man, he was the temple president of the Atlanta temple. And his father was a lawyer, and he'd also studied law, and he was supposed to practice law, but he'd become a devotee. And he was the temple president in Atlanta. And somehow he got involved in politics, and he entered into the political race. You know, he was competing to become what do they call it in America? One in the Senate or something like that, you know, politician. So Prabhupada was guiding him and instructing him how to preach and what to preach about. You know, that you should tell all the other politicians that if we are going to represent our country, we have to be honest. We have to follow principles of religion, cleanliness, truthfulness, mercy, austerity. These things are very important, and you know, who can deny that? You know, nobody can say, "Oh, this is not very important." Everybody will, yes, very important. You have to be honest. Politicians should be honest. If he's a liar and cheater, then what kind of person is that to be? So Prabhupada was guiding him to preach like this, you see. And he got a number of votes, you know. He didn't win the election, but eventually Prabhupada said, no, we don't want to do this because a lot of money was involved. You have to spend a lot of money. Politics, it's a lot of advertising, propaganda, big money. And then we would also be affected, you know, you can lose your tax status because we're a religious society, we're not a political society. So Prabhupada told the devotee, we won't bother with this anymore, don't get involved with this. But for some time, it was very, you know, everybody was feeling very confident. Our faith was so strong because Prabhupada was guiding us and telling us what to teach, what to preach to people about. And we were feeling that Prabhupada and everything, what he's saying is so true. And nobody could defeat it, no one could deny it. So faith, very important for all of us. And we get that faith when we associate with great preachers like Srila Prabhupada and all those other devotees who follow in their footsteps. You can see how it's many wonderful leading devotees in our Krishna consciousness movement. They inspire a lot of faith in their followers. And so we can get faith by hearing from devotees, and we can also develop faith ourselves by reading Prabhupada's books and by practicing the process. When we actually practice what's described here in the Bhagavad-gita, just like we said, pratyakshavagamam dharmyam, right? You can perceive it directly. It's not just some philosophy which we speak, but it's a science. And if we actually do like it's described, you will see the result. So Krishna consciousness is like that. You do it, you get the result. You can see it happening. Prabhupada, we were reading Prabhupada's example. Just like when you eat, you feel satisfaction. You feel the nourishment. You feel relief from hunger. You feel strength coming in the body. It comes about. So in the same way, when we do devotional service, when we practice the principles of Krishna consciousness, then we feel also an awakening of detachment from the material and an awakening of transcendental knowledge. It all comes about step by step, and we go on even to perceive the Lord Himself. Direct perception of the Lord comes about as we go on practicing the process of devotional service. So we want to perceive all of these things one after another. Right? So faith, very important. So after explaining the qualification for hearing, Lord Krishna now goes on in this 9th chapter to explain about His inconceivable potency. I will read verse 4 to you. Krishna was explaining, he said, by me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Right? So this is Lord Krishna speaking about his avyakta murtina. Avyakta murtina. Avyakta meaning the unmanifested form. Lord Krishna has his form, and he's speaking here about how Jagat avyakta murtina, that he has also within this world, he has an unmanifested form. So the Supreme Lord, he said, by me in my unmanifested form, the entire universe is pervaded. Krishna is everywhere, but he is everywhere in his unmanifested form. Right? We can't see him. We don't see him, although he's everywhere and in everything, but we don't see him. But Krishna said, all beings are in me, but I am not in them. Krishna maintains his personality, that he is a person. If he was simply everywhere, then he's no longer a person, because he's everywhere in everything. But he's not only everywhere and in everything, but he is also maintaining his own individual identity as a person. This is the inconceivable potency of Lord Krishna. Just like in the 7th chapter, Lord Krishna has explained that there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests on me, just like pearls are strung on a thread. Now that verse is very significant because Lord Krishna is establishing himself as the Supreme. He said there is no truth superior to... Now Lord Shiva never says that. Lord Brahma never says that. Lord Ganesh never says that. Mother Durga never says like that. There are many other gods, but none of them will ever say that there is no truth superior to me. Only Krishna says like that. This is the position of Lord Krishna. And then Lord Krishna gave the example. He said, everything rests on me, just like the beads are strung on a thread. Now, see, just like we have our neck beads, and when we have the beads on properly, you see the beads, you don't see the thread. In the same way, Krishna is holding everything together, inconceivably. We don't see him, but he's there in everything, everywhere, through his potency, through his inconceivable potency. This very important point to understand, that the Lord has inconceivable potencies. We are not accustomed to the inconceivable. We think everything should be conceivable. We should be able to understand everything and to measure everything and see the size of everything by our own mind and senses. But when something is beyond the mind and senses, then we want to reject it. But we have to understand that there are certain things which are beyond our mind and senses. Our mind and senses are limited and imperfect. We want to understand things, we have to hear. Very important, right? Hearing, just like we said, you want the qualification for hearing, we should not be envious. Some people are envious of Krishna. And so they say, no, Krishna, why Krishna could be like that? I don't believe. They're actually envious of Krishna. Prabhupada said that many commentators on Bhagavad-gita are envious of Krishna. they write commentaries on the Bhagavad-gita just simply denying Krishna's supreme position and saying Krishna is an ordinary person. They do not understand Krishna. So Krishna is speaking here in this 9th chapter, describing his inconceivable potency. We've quoted here from the book Surrender Unto Me. So it's written there, after explaining in verse 4 that all beings rest in him. In verse 5, Krishna says the opposite, that they do not rest in him. Right? Verse 4, I'll read it again. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Verse 5 says, and yet everything that is created does not rest in me. He just said everything rests in me, but then he says, yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence, Krishna says. So similarly, it's pointed out here in Surrender Unto Me, this contradictory language is meant to show that he is personally aloof from the working of the universe, and that such functions are carried out by his energy. Right? By his energy, Krishna is pervading everything. But he personally, the Supreme Lord, is aloof from everything. He is energetic. He is not energy. Some people think the Supreme Absolute Truth is energy. They think God is light. But if they read the Vedas, if they read the Ishopanishad, you will read that one should go through the light to come to the object, the source of the light. Don't think that light itself is the supreme. Light is simply the energy, and energy has a source. Just like the sunlight comes from the sun planet. And within the sun planet, there is the sun god. So in the same way, there is energy, the all-pervading energy of the material world, and the source of that energy, the person who is aloof from all of that, who is controlling, who's arranging for all of this. And that is the Supreme Lord. So this contradiction is there to show his inconceivable potency. We see that kind of contradiction come in the Upanishads also. There's a verse, tad ejati, tad naijati, tad dure, tad vantike. In the Ishopanishad it said, the Supreme Lord walks and he does not walk. He is far away, but he is very near as well. He's within everything, but he's outside of everything also. Again, contradictions. Why? To show the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord. Right? That he walks, but he doesn't walk like us. He's not like us. You know, we walk, we get tired, right? He's far away, but he's very near. He's far away in Goloka. At the same time, he's very near. He's within the heart. So contradictions are there. We have to understand these contradictions simply are there to illustrate his inconceivable potency, how he is beyond everything. So the first 3 verses of the 9th chapter were describing qualification for hearing. In the next section, verses 4 to 10, were describing this inconceivable relationship with the material world. Right? The material energy of Krishna was described in the 7th chapter. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, altogether, they say, comprise my separated material energy. Separated, right? Separated energy. Prabhupada gave the example, so just like sometimes the voice is recorded. So the recording is like the separated energy of the speaker. And then he said also that just like the milk from the cow. The milk from the cow is the separated energy of the cow. So in the same way, the material world is the separated energy of Krishna. Prabhupada gave another example. He said just like sometimes husband and wife, they are separated. The relationship is not so intimate. They have separated themselves. So in the same way, the material energy is not so intimate with the Lord. The Lord doesn't take so much concern for the material energy. His residence is in the spiritual sky. He enjoys with his devotees eternally in the spiritual world. This material world is his separated energy. So Krishna's relationship with this energy is described for us. Although all living entities are within Krishna, right? We're all within Krishna because this whole world is Krishna's energy. And just like when Mother Yashoda looked in the mouth of Krishna, Balaram had told Mother Yashoda, Krishna's been eating dirt. And so Mother Yashoda was concerned and she asked Krishna, have you been eating dirt? Open your mouth, let me see. So when Krishna opened his mouth, Mother Yashoda looked in Krishna's mouth, then she saw everything, right? The whole creation. And she saw her own self looking into Krishna's mouth, inside Krishna's mouth. So everything is within Krishna. All living entities are within Krishna and are dependent on Krishna and are supported by Krishna. They nevertheless act independently. We're given some independence. Our independence, what is that independence? Either to serve Krishna or to serve Maya. Either to act under the spiritual energy or under the material energy. That is our independence. When we act under the material energy, then we're controlled by the three modes of nature. And when we surrender to Krishna, then we're controlled by Krishna's Daivi Prakriti, by his spiritual potency. Either way we're controlled, but there's a big difference between the control. The material energy causes us so many troubles and trials and tribulations, so many difficulties, unpleasant experience. But the spiritual energy allows one to taste the bliss of pure, loving service to Krishna. So, this is an inconceivable feature of the relationship between the living entities and Krishna. That it is inconceivable that we're fully dependent on Krishna and at the same time we have some independence. Right? It's one and different. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy is like that. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, famous Acharya, was given a very wonderful commentary on this verse in Bhagavad-gita. He explains, the government business of a king, like Ambarish Maharaj, is carried out by his ministers, while the uninvolved king merely remains present. All the same, unless the king is present on the throne, the ministers are incapable of doing anything. In the same way, unless Krishna gives his support as a supervisor, material nature cannot do anything. Now Maharaja Ambarish was a great king in Mathura, right? When we go there to that Kusum Sarovar there, that beautiful big pond there at site of Radhakund, it says Maharaja Ambarish used to live there, that place. So Maharaja Ambarish, he was always in the temple, worship the deity, hear the scriptures, have kirtan with the devotees. You know, he was a king. But he didn't get involved in the politics and running the country and the state laws and everything. You know, he's a devotee. He just wanted to be Krishna conscious. So, but still he's the king. As long as he's the king, then the ministers are empowered to act on his behalf. Right? Just like government. One man can't do everything. He empowers other people. So Maharaj Ambarish, he was the king, and he was empowering his ministers. So long as he's there, everyone respects the king. As soon as the king's not there, then the ministers don't have that same power. People won't listen to the ministers anymore. The same way, Krishna is always there to give his support, to supervise the material nature. He doesn't have to do everything himself. It's all carried out under his different agents in the form of the material energy. Here are some of the main points from these verses of the text 10. From number 4, Prabhupada preaches against the Mayavadi philosophy that the living entity loses his existence. They think, because some people think we will merge and lose our individuality. But the example is there of the king, the government, and everyone's cooperating together, eternally, individuals. Some people think that it must be a great burden for Krishna to maintain everything, to keep everything going, and to organize the rotation of the planets. So Prabhupada gives an example about Atlas. Because Prabhupada was living in New York for some time. And so if you go to New York, on the 5th Avenue, there's a big place, a shopping center, Rockefeller Center, on the 5th Avenue. And in the Rockefeller Center, and then on the square there, they have a big bronze statue of Atlas. Atlas is this muscular guy, you know, from the Greek mythology, and he's picking up the earth planet. And you can see the labor, you know, the muscles are bulging, and he's really bending, trying to pick up the earth planet. You know, so people may think, oh, it must really be an effort for Krishna, you know. Krishna's holding all the planets, he must be working so hard. But Prabhupada said, no, it's not Prabhupada. Prabhupada says, Krishna doesn't, it's for Krishna, it's effortless. It's all going on. Just by his glancing, everything, all the planets are held in space. Effortless. It's not like Atlas. He's working up. Because he's an ordinary human. You know, big, strong man, but still it's a labor for him. A lot of endeavor. But for Krishna, it's effortless. No trouble, no sweat at all. He's holding everything. Everything is going on very nicely under his direction. Number 6. Lord Krishna gives an analogy to help us understand this example. How everything is in him, but at the same time, it's not in him. The example is given about how the wind is always within space. The wind blows everywhere, but it's always within some kind of space. So in the same way, everything is moving in this world is also under the control of Krishna. We will read the example. Krishna says, understand as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky. All creative beings rest in me. Krishna is giving the example, a material example. He's comparing himself to the sky, and all the beings are created. They're like the wind, you see. So of course there's a difference. But the sky and the wind, these are material things, and they're inanimate. Krishna and the living entities are animate. They have consciousness. But it's a nice analogy to help us to understand how everything is within Krishna. And then text number 9, another analogy is given about how, verse number 9 was talking about how people get reactions to their work, but Krishna doesn't get any reactions. Everyone else is getting reactions. The whole material world, it is annihilated at the end, then again created. Krishna says in text number 9, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. So Krishna is neutral. Everyone is we're all getting reactions to our work, our different karmic reactions. But Krishna is neutral to everything. His position is like the judge. Sometimes the judge punishes someone and somebody else is rewarding. Someone you may go to court and you may have been hit by a car, so the car owner, he has to pay you compensation. The judge said, yeah, you should receive money to compensate you for your injury. And then somebody else comes into court and he's been found guilty of murder, and the judge may sentence him to death sentence. So the man may complain that, oh, why you want to kill me? You give the other man money and you're going to kill me. Why is this? Why difference? But the judge is neutral. He's only sentencing people or punishing people or rewarding people according to their acts, according to their situation. It's not that the judge is partial to one person and impartial and against someone else. So in the same way, Krishna is neutral. We're all suffering and enjoying according to our own works. It's not that Krishna doesn't like us. Sometimes people think, Krishna's not very kind to me, doesn't give me good results. I don't get the money I want, I don't get the happiness I want. I think Krishna's unkind. But Krishna is simply rewarding us according to our own activities. And then finally text number 10 talks about how material energy is under Krishna's control. Text number 10, Maya Jakshena Prakriti Suyate Kacharachara Hitunanina Kontiya Jagat Viparivartate. Material nature is under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So in this way, Krishna is describing how he's separate from the material energy. Prabhupada gives the example about the flower and the smelling power. So that one can smell the flower without actually touching the flower. So in the same way, the material energy is acting under the direction of Krishna, although Krishna is aloof from it. But he can orchestrate, control fully the working of the material nature. So this way Krishna is describing his inconceivable potencies, this 9th chapter. Right? Maya Yakshina, under my eyes. Everything is done under Krishna's supervision. We have to understand that. It's not by chance. People think, oh, Krishna is not very good at organizing so many problems in the world. No, we get the results. We are suffering. Okay, that's the end of that. So this way we're presenting the first sections, the first two sections of the 9th chapter. We heard about the qualification for hearing Krishna, right? Remember, first of all, we should be without envy. And then we should be generous, like the king, right? And third thing was faith, right? Have to have strong faith. And then finally, the next section, we were hearing about Krishna's relationship with the material world. How Krishna's everywhere in everything by his energy, but at the same time he is aloof from everything because he's residing in the spiritual world. Okay, any question?